From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in North Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
And good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 14th. And as we move deeper into the fall months, we're going to start getting into more signals as far as snow is concerned. I don't think we're quite there yet. There are some models that have been showing snow events here and there and people getting excited on social media. And I keep telling you, just to be patient. I know we're getting an early start, or we're projecting to have an earlier start, but it's probably not yet, okay? And we were always telling people, okay, the early November period is probably not going to happen. Now, with that said, you could have something very minor, something timed very well, which is the case with tonight. This is the rain, snow expected tonight, and you can see the swath of snow moving across the northern tier and the higher elevations of north central, northeast PA. This will start off as snow in the Pittsburgh area. I think the Pittsburgh-Detroit game here at home in Pittsburgh, which is right about here, the tip of my arrow, there is going to be, maybe like during the second half at least, some snowflakes flying. It might not be sticking very well, but there's snow certainly shown to be flying here at that point. And then as this moves over the mountainous regions of north central, northeast PA, there's going to be snow falling. Whether that's sticking or not is going to depend on your elevation. Okay, so the higher elevations could get a coating to an inch out of this, and you can see on the snow map, this is what the newest NAM that ran this morning is printing out, and we have a lot of coating to half-inch stuff in the valleys. You get up to the higher elevations here, these little peaks, little specks here, okay, and there are some places like in Sullivan County, like LaPorte, Sullivan County, okay, their elevation is 2,000 feet, okay. Places like Lakewood up here in northwestern Wayne County might get an inch of snow out of that. Your elevation there is 1,800 feet. Tobyhanna and Mount Pocono, 1,500 to 2,000 feet, somewhere in that range, you could get the same thing, about a coating to an inch of snow up in those regions. So it's mainly elevation focused. I think the areas up here that are over 1,000 feet are where you're going to see maybe some dustings of snow, maybe coating to a half-inch type stuff in the valleys even. But once you get up into the higher elevations, that's where you get your inch. Maybe even somebody squeezes out 2 here across the usual colder spots of Sullivan County. Sullivan County seems to be in a world of its own for any of you that go up there and hunt or vacation up there, or cabins and things like that. Look, it's a different world up there, and you know that, okay? And this area in particular would be highlighted. If I was going to pick an area to see the highest snowfall, it would be right across Sullivan County, where 1 to 2 inches of snow can fall with this quick moving wave. So you're going to have these kind of systems that are very minor, very elevation related, timing related, perfect timing coming in during the evening. This is evening when this is coming in, by the way, as this comes across the state. This is looking at Sunday evening when this is coming through. So it's a little cooler. It's after sunset. Temperatures aren't going to be that warm to begin with today, but then they're going to have them drop off over these areas. And then we're going to have some lake effect snow possibly across those same areas during the day here on Monday. See some lake effect snow coming across some of those areas. These are lake effect snow showers and squalls possible in just those areas alone here on Monday. So elsewhere, nothing. And further south of it, down to I-78 today and points south where the lower elevations are, it's just a few showers during the evening, and that's it, okay? So that's that. So our long range was inclusive of that, and we have that here. There's a second system. The first one was the first one that produced snowflakes, and that was with this last system that moved in yesterday, at the very tail end. Some of you saw your first snowflakes. They didn't really do too much, but you had some snowflakes falling. So that was the first snowflakes of the season, and then today is the first chance for some areas to get into some very minor accumulations of snow. Now, we don't do snow maps for anything coating to an inch stuff or something that's this localized as far as anything getting over an inch. But there it is. If you want to snow, if I was going to print a snow map out, it would be something like this. Okay, these areas are just coating to a half inch in most areas. Some areas get a little higher than that when you get up to elevation. So those areas I mentioned that are a little bit higher, and that's it. That's the second system. We have a cold front that's going to come through at the end of the next week, so we're going to be pretty dry up until that point. after we get past Monday with those lake effect snow showers I talked about. And then we still have a winter storm signal here listed for the beginning of the second week of December. I think that's still a favorable period here, and I'll discuss that here in the video. Now, we have slightly below average temperatures this month, near to slightly below average snowfall. The areas that are going to get snow this month are going to be the areas that are climatologically favored to do so in the interior and further north, it looks like. Not looking at a big storm this month. Not impossible, but I doubt it, okay? I mean, this is something we take on a case-by-case basis. We're doing this, when you're doing long range, you're doing probability-based stuff, and this is really not a high probability thing to see anything significant in the month of November. Once we get to December, things could change a little bit, and we have near to slightly above average snowfall for the month of December for that reason. Temperatures, we went near average. We had this slightly below average. We bumped this up to near average. So it looks like we're going to start off the month slightly below average, and then after that, mid-month beyond is a little bit up in question yet. And there's some models that are indicating that it's going to turn a little bit milder. And I'm hearing the groans already. I can't even hear any of you, but I can hear some of you groaning in your minds or out loud that, oh, here we go again with it approaches Christmas and it gets warm. Well, we'll see. We'll see how that works. There's some things that I'll talk about in the video that is going to affect that. Here's your average snowfall for across the region. So not much in November, climatologically speaking. When we get December, this jumps up pretty significantly across our major climate sites across the region, and we have a lot more in the way of chances, at least from a probability standpoint here in the month of December. We talked about La Nina in the last episode that we did the first one we did of the season last week. La Nina is still expected to be a weak La Nina, and it's going to peak here over the next couple of months or so, okay? Now, the current ENSO forecast has these numbers here. These are the numbers of the different regions, the different Nino regions across the equatorial Eastern Pacific, and they are all in slightly below average territory, which is a weak La Nina, okay? These are all -1 Celsius departure from normal or less, okay? So we're all generally in that weak La Nina area. Now, one thing we've noticed over the last week or so is a push to get the eastern side of this area of the Nino regions, which is right in here, just west of the international date line, all the way over to the Peruvian coast. We've had a tendency to increase or decrease the temperatures, actually, closer to the South American continent, okay? So this is the closest to the Nino 1 and 2 regions, and also Nino 3, which is also in one of these eastern regions right here. This is 3, 1 and 2 is right here. So we're increasing this and shifting it a little bit more east-based, which would be a little bit better if it was east-based for prospects for snow in our region this winter, okay? If it's more central-based, that allows ridging to take place in the central part of the United States, and then you're battling some southeast ridge and things like that. So we'll see. We'll see how this trends. This is just a 1 week trend. This is not something that you can say long term. This is what it's going to be, and that the eastern regions are going to dominate. But it is favoring the eastern side of this consensus here. So here is this is looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies that shows the La Nina. But you see the most of the concentration is a little bit further east, not so much as far west, okay? And are increasing over in these regions. So if it is in a tendency to move toward an east-based La Nina, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to reach that, and it's not going to backbuild here in the central regions as well. We've had if a lot of people ask me about a comparable analog. We don't do winter outlooks, and I've made that very clear why we don't do winter outlooks. But I have still had a lot of people emailing me and messaging me on Twitter. I even had some private messages from friends of mine asking about what would you pick as an analog for this year that's comparable. One of the comparable analogs I picked out was 2005, 2006. This is very similar in terms of sea surface temperature anomalies. What we see now is a little bit more east-based here. This is November of 2005. Very similar with a cold pull up here, get warm out here, warm here on the eastern side of the United States, and then you have it basically favoring, not east-based necessarily, but pushed toward the eastern side here, and maybe a little bit more prominent than it is right now. As we look through the comparison here, go back and forth. There's what it is currently, and there was 2005. It's very similar, okay? So if I were to pick one that's probably like my number one lead analog right now, this is probably it based on what is matching current sea surface temperature anomalies to the past. Again, I don't like to do seasonal stuff. That doesn't mean that we're going to end up this way. And for those of you who are wondering, what did 2005, 2006 winter do? Well, a lot of near average stuff, near to very slightly below average in some places in terms of total snowfall for the winter. But the difference is this east base starting out in November ended up central based by the time we got to the heart of winter. And again, central base is not good. A central base La Nina is not good for, or not as good for snow chances here in the eastern United States. Okay, so if you want some really good chances here, you want it east based, and that's where it is heading currently in just within the last 7 days. But it does not mean it's going to continue that way. So if we are going to be central based initially, like this year, and heading toward east based, that's a good thing if you're a snow lover. If it's going to be giving you a head fake of going toward east based La Nina and then going back to central like it did in 2005, 2006, then that's generally what you're looking at, maybe a near average winter in terms of snowfall. So that's just, and again, that's just one factor. There's many factors that go into a forecast, and it's not just as simple as what are the sea surface temperatures and what is La Nina doing, okay? One of those factors, of course, is the North Atlantic Oscillation. We talked about this in the last video, too. We're going to have to take advantage of periods that the NAO is negative, which is the block over Greenland, which will give you the opportunity for some bigger snow events and not allowing these storms just to escape out to sea or be suppressed. If it's too strong, it will be suppressed, but there's really some indications here in the longer range, especially in our storm signal time frame, in the 12th or 8th to the 12th, that you're dipping negative here. This is the GFS extended that I'm looking at here, and here is the Euro Weeklies also showing negative at that period. So there's an opportunity that supports that period with teleconnections anyway. All right, so we'll see how this plays out. Again, a storm signal is not a guarantee for snow or a big storm or anything like that. It might even just be something you get something minor in there, and that's possible too. There's no guarantees here, but the opportunities there from a probabilistic standpoint is going to be a little bit higher in that range, and that's why we identify that as a storm signal, or one of the reasons why identified as a storm signal. And here's the Euro Weeklies. Now I'm using Lehigh Valley International Airport as an example, but you see that same period, you're starting to see some of these ensemble numbers jump up right in this region here. This is that same period right in here, and the Eurocontrol actually has a bigger storm here, but regardless, you're seeing some jump ups here right in this period of some ensemble members picking up on the potential for some accumulating snowfall in that region that would be snow map worthy. May not be enormous, but it could be certainly snow map worthy in that time frame. So we'll see how that plays out. There's a lot of time to look at that. I'm just trying to give you some perspective as to what we do as far as identifying storm signals. I may need to include one here toward the end of November. There's a possibility of that. Some ensemble members are actually showing the Euro EPS mean is actually showing a favorable period here for at least something minor toward the end of this would be after Thanksgiving, toward the end of the month of November. So it'll be like maybe Thanksgiving weekend following Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving is the 25th, so maybe like 27th, 28th time frame, 29th, somewhere in there. We'll see. I don't think there's enough of a clear signal to identify that here in the long-range outlooks, but it's a period we're going to be watching as well for maybe something minor, for more inclusive of the region and not just something that you get like elevation snow, minor snow, and it's happening in the evening and night, perfectly timed. So one of the things we're going forward here is examining the temperature periods, and we are going to turn cooler again. We are cooler right now. We're going to have a little bit of a spike here when we get to midweek, Wednesday, Thursday, ahead of the next front, and then you see it gets right back to colder than average. So we're colder than average through Tuesday. Get a little bit of a spike Tuesday and Wednesday, and we're right back into the colder than average and back into the 40s again by the time we get to Friday and into next weekend. And then taking that beyond that for the next 15 days, here is that period. Again, you go near average one day here around the 21st or so, and then you go back to slightly below average here through the end of the month of November. This goes right to the end of the run, and you see we're colder than average. So we have opportunities for being colder, but colder than average this time of year and colder than average in December, a month from now, are going to be two different things because the average highs are a little higher yet. So it's going to take a little bit more than that to really produce something, and you're still going to have something perfectly timed and the perfect track kind of thing to get you snowfall, kind of like we're dealing with this current system. Here's the temperature periods over the next 2 weeks, and this again using Lehigh Valley International Airport because it is the centermost point of our coverage region. Okay, so I'm just going to use this as an example, but you can see we're cold over the next couple of days. You get that little bit of a spike here ahead of the cold front Wednesday, Thursday. Then we dip down again. We get 1 day or so. We get back closer to average, and then we're back down For Thanksgiving week, we're in the lower 40s for highs here at this particular location. So this is below average in this region. Okay, so there's the opportunity there for, we get toward the end of the month here. If you're at 42, 41, 43, I mean, if you have something coming in at night, you might have some snow involved with that. We'll see. So I don't want to identify a storm signal here, but we're going to watch that period just in case. But it's getting a little bit lower each time you get these shots come in. And that's what happens during fall when you have the temperatures, the further deep you go into fall, continuing to drop off by about 2 to 3 degrees per week. Okay. Taking this beyond this in December, the GFS Extended still has a cold first half of December relative to average until you get to about the middle of the month, and it starts to moderate a little bit. So this starting to show this. Now, it never gets to above average, and this goes all the way through the 18th of December. And you can still see we're kind of near average at the end of that run, but, and near average for that time of year are normal highs in the lower 40s. So you can still have something, all right? But, once you get past the middle of the month, there's a lot of questions of how that's going to evolve. And one of the reasons of the questions is, how's the Madden Julian oscillation going to behave? I didn't talk about this in the last video, but this is the measure of the convection, the best convection along the equatorial regions between the Indian Ocean all the way eastward through the Pacific. And this is, right now it's projected over the next couple of weeks here to remain in the circle of death. Circle of death means that the Madden Julian oscillation has very little effect on the pattern at all. It's when you get into these different phases around that circle that means something, and that's what correlates to the chart on the right here. Now, once we get this, so this goes up to the 12th. This is the Euro Weeklies. Once you get up to the 12th here, it's starting to get into phase 6, 7-ish right here. Well, if you look over here to what it does and what that means in the month of December, phase 6 is a very warm signal across the United States. Phase 7 is colder, so there's a lot of uncertainty where these. If you look closely, there's some yellow spaghetti plots here. They're kind of going into phase 6, maybe phase 7. So you might have a warm up here during that third week of December, and then it goes back to cold again if this continues this progression this way. There's no idea. We have no idea whether it's going to do that or not. And this is something that is done intraseasonally, and it's done on a shorter term basis. So we'll see where this goes as far as best convection along the equator regions, and what that does to promote some heat flux or heat transport to change the jet around a little bit. Because if it gets into phase 7, phase 8, then we could be dealing with a lot more sustained cold episodes and maybe some blocking and things like that. So we're going to follow this closely. Again, we're still early in the game here. It's only November 14th. So for me to sit here and say there's something's going to happen a certain way is kind of a fool's errand right now, because I just don't know. And nobody knows. You can speculate, but again, nobody's paying me to speculate. So I'm just going to throw these out there and say that there are warmer risks in the second half of November, but warm is going to be relative to average, and it doesn't mean it's going to be blowtorch necessarily toward the second half of the month, or that this even evolves this way or even gets into phase 6. But if it does get into phase 6, we're probably cooked for a little bit until this gets out of phase 6 and gets into a more favorable periods of 7, 8, and 1, and that would be certainly helpful. But now in La Nina, in a La Nina season, the Madden Julian oscillation favors the maritime continent and Western Pacific typically. Okay, and you can see phase 5, phase 6. These are not very warm. These are warmer phases. Okay, so we need to stay out of this area if you want sustained cold and snow. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of fast Pacific jet and zonal stuff. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't want to kill anything here yet. Again, this is why we don't do seasonal stuff. I'm just looking at the next 5 to 6 weeks, and our 5 to 6 week period takes us up to about just before Christmas. Okay, so I can see some warmer risks at the end of the period. It's not a guarantee, but we'll see how that evolves exactly. But I know we are, for the next 5 to 6 weeks, for the majority of that, at least the first 5, we are going to be colder than average, it looks like, through at least the middle of December. After that point, we'll see what happens. But I don't want to get anybody excited about X, Y, and Z are going to happen. We don't know yet. That's basically the gist I'm trying to get at. My Pocket Meteorologist stuff, premium forum, and text alert subscriptions are still being taken for the upcoming winter. These are the text alerts that we send out ahead of any storms. We'll be sending for those today as well for those areas expecting some snow, and actually be sending it out shortly after this video for those areas that I mentioned. And we'll be doing this throughout the winter for your specific county, your area. We'll give you timing, start times, changeover times to other precipitation types if applicable, and we will give you the end time of any precipitation and total amounts for your region. That is the My Pocket Meteorologist text alerts, and the forum is where we talk about it a little bit more and sort of geek out a little bit as far as the model analysis and things like that throughout the winter. So check that out. Look for this this banner here. It's up here on the top right of the video. This takes you to the general My Pocket Meteorologist page. This address right here. But at this same EPAWA-weather.com /winter weather alerts, you're going to have, or actually you go to this page here and it'll take you right there if you look for the winter weather alerts section. And it'll give you all the information of what it entails, what the program entails, and how to sign up for that service. This is where, these are the counties that we do cover within our coverage area. Everybody always asking us, why can't you cover out in Western Pennsylvania, New York, further south of Maryland? We don't, this is our coverage area. This is what we do. We have plenty to deal with in our business. A lot of clients in this area that we have that keeps us plenty busy. I just can't really expand beyond this because we just don't have the staffing to be able to handle any more than we already do. So this is the area we cover, and we've covered it for several years now, since I think 2015 is the last time we expanded. But this is plenty of coverage area. The entire state of New Jersey, entire state of Delaware, the eastern 2/3 of Pennsylvania, and the northernmost counties in Maryland, to include the Eastern Shore, which is the Ocean City, Maryland area. So sign up for that in advance of our systems coming in the next couple of weeks. You'll have all the information and the text alert. So this summary for this video in particular, the La Nina progression will continue to be monitored. Again, east base versus central base is going to make a big difference in what our weather is down the road. 2005, 2015, it became central base. Does it stay east base this time and give us a better winter? We don't know that yet. We're just going to have to follow that progression now. Continue to do that each and every week. Colder than average temperatures for at least the second half of November and at least the first part of December. I think it might be the first half, actually, of December. After that point, we're going to follow the teleconnections, and particularly the NAO and MJO progression, to determine what's going to happen after that. That's going to be a down-the-road thing. One thing I want to say about these longer range models, when you get further in time, you have to take that with a grain of salt because they change a lot, okay? So for the first 3-4 weeks are usually pretty good. Euro Weeklies, for example. Once you get beyond that, then you're starting to get into some territory that changes a lot, and you can't take it for granted. Sometimes we'll have a very warm run of the Euro Weeklies. Next run will be very cold. It's what flips a lot, okay? So these are why we follow the teleconnections, and we're going to continue to do that going forward into the upcoming winter on a week-by-week basis. So join us again is next week, and we'll give you the latest updates on that progression from all of the different angles that I covered here in this video. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marches. That's this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 14th. Join us again next week for another update of the Weather Weeklies video next Sunday, the 21st. Take care.